Hello everyone. Today we are going to fix the most common SSH errors that beginners run into. I will show you the simplest steps that solve most connection problems without overwhelming you. If you want to follow along, there is a link below to try Linode for free. So let's move to the terminal. Most SSH issues happen because your computer cannot reach the server. So you should start with a basic network test. And that's to ping the server. I'm going to do ping minus C 4 for the number of times it's going to ping, which is 4, and then the server IP. And if your server is reachable, this is the kind of output you should expect. Now, if the server is not reachable, you should see something like this. So to recap, if you see timeouts or packets lost, this is a networking issue or even DNS before SSH comes into play. But if you see replies, that means that the server is reachable. This will be the first step that any team member makes when a user reports an SSH problem. Now, if you're able to get to the server, but an end user is not able to get to the server by SSH, the next step to do is to make sure SSH is actually running. Because if the SSH server is not running, no connection will work. So from your server console, you should run sudo systemctl status SSH. And if you see active, that means it's running. So that means SSH is working. But if it shows inactive or failed, that means that the service is not running, in which case you would run start. Sudo systemctl start. Sudo systemctl start SSH to start the service if it was not running. A lot of times restarting the service can fix a lot of issues. Permission deny errors are also pretty common. This error usually happens because the username is incorrect or your key permissions are too open. So when you try to SSH, you'll see an error similar to this. So you as system admin will go to your server and ls the user's directory, and you'll probably see something like we have down below where the permissions are too open in the SSH directory. So we can fix this by doing chmod 600 the username .ssh and then whatever type of key it's using. For an extra precaution, we'll do 700 and tuser SSH directory as a whole. So now if I was to SSH in again, I will go straight back in. SSH requires private keys to be locked down. These permission settings are the simplest safe fix. It's very common with new Linux users, especially when moving keys between systems, to encounter permission errors. Host key verification errors show up when the server was rebuilt or if its fingerprint has changed. The error message you will see when you're trying to SSH in will look like this right here. And inside the error message is the way to fix this error. You can do SSH-keygen -uppercase-R space and then the server IP. And this removes the old key and lets SSH learn the new one the next time it connects. Now if I try to connect via SSH, I'm asked if I'm sure if I want to connect if I trust the server. I can type in yes, and it adds a new key to my server, and we're logged in. This happens a lot in cloud labs where VMs are built up and tore down on a regular basis, or in a hypervisor type environment. If you know your server is up, but SSH just hangs, this usually means that the port is blocked. And the simplest way to check this is to do SSH-v for verbose, then your username, and the server IP. And according to this, port 22, the typical SSH port, is refused. And that is correct. For the purposes of this video, I went in and changed my default port. So now if I go up to my verbose command and I do a space -p for port, and then I type in the port I want to SSH in on, and hit enter, I am connected. And this can give us a clear hint of any networking changes that may be in place before having to escalate to a more advanced tool this early in the troubleshooting process. So the three biggest mistakes that I always see being made is, first of all, the wrong IP. Always double check the server IP from your cloud dashboard or documentation. The second biggest mistake I always see made is using the wrong username. Cloud images are often use fixed usernames, like Ubuntu, root, Debian, or in my example I use tuser. The third biggest mistake I always see being made are key permissions are not set. SSH will reject keys that are readable by other users. So use the permission fix from earlier in this video. So if somebody was to put in a ticket saying they couldn't SSH into a server, the very first thing I would do is try to ping that server they're trying to access. If I can successfully reach it on ping, the next step I'm going to do is try to SSH into it. And since they're saying they're having trouble, I'm going to use the verbose option just as a safety net. And then if I wasn't able to go straight into it, typically the verbose option will show me any errors in the login process. But in this situation, it went straight in. So assuming I had sudo permission, the next thing I'm going to do is make sure SSH is running. And we see that SSH is active and running. We don't see any errors in the service log itself. So the next thing that I will do, change user to root, and then I will change directly to the user that's having trouble getting in. And there, I will check the permissions on their directory as a whole. And then fix any username permissions or key permissions that I see that may be there. And at this point, you would have solved the majority of the SSH issues that you'll encounter. But if you want to take this a step further, if you're a system admin that has root permission to the server, a simple next step that you have is to run journal ctl -f, or I'm sorry, -u ssh service -f. You can watch the actual SSH service journal log as the user is trying to SSH in. So if I tried to SSH as tuser using the wrong port, the connection is instantly refused. But if I add the port and add the passphrase from SSH key, we see the successful login. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, change directory.ssh, and I'm going to vi my authorized keys file, and I'm simply going to comment out my SSH key so it's no longer available. And I'm going to log back out, and I'm going to up arrow back to my SSH command. And if we look at the logs, I'll expand this so you can see better. We will see that tuser tried to SSH in, but the connection was closed by authenticating user. So that tells us that there was something wrong with either his SSH key or his password. In this situation, we're not using password, so I know it was his SSH key. Work through these steps a few times, and SSH errors start to feel simple and predictable. Each command builds confidence and prepares you for more advanced server work. If you found this video helpful, please leave a comment down below. And I will see y'all next time.